Let me preface this by saying I am not usually a paranoid person. I'm not jumpy, I don't freak out easily, and I definitely don't call the cops over every little sound in the night. But what happened this past weekend has made me rethink a lot about myself, and also chicken. So it starts on Saturday. My girlfriend went to visit her family out of town and I had the house to myself. Normally this would mean binge-watching old action movies, eating terribly, and lounging in boxers for 72 hours straight. But I decided, for once, to be productive. We'd just bought a new smoker, and I figured this was a good time to try it out. I've never smoked meat before. My only grilling experience up until this point involved an overcooked burger and one time setting off the fire alarm with a hot dog. But I watched a few YouTube videos and figured, how hard could it be? I got a whole chicken, rubbed it down with spices, and got the smoker going in the backyard around noon. Everything seemed to be going well for the first few hours. The chicken was slowly turning a golden brown, and the smell was unreal. I was in the middle of congratulating myself when I noticed the smoke. A lot of smoke. Apparently, I didn't account for wind direction, and the smoker was pointed directly at one of our basement windows, which, as luck would have it, was cracked open from the last time we aired out the house. I ran downstairs and found the whole basement hazy with smoke. I opened all the windows and set up some fans. But then it got worse. As I was airing out the basement, I heard a thud from upstairs. Then footsteps. Not mine. I froze. The smoker was in the backyard. No one should be in the house. I grabbed the nearest weapon-like object I could find, a metal broom handle, and crept upstairs. Silence. Then, from the hallway, another thud. At this point, my heart was racing. I did the only logical thing a normal person would do. I hid in the coat closet and called the cops. The operator was calm and professional while I whispered like a terrified Victorian child describing a prowler in my house. She told me to stay on the line and that a unit was nearby. 10 minutes later, blue and red lights were flashing outside. Officers came in, guns drawn. I burst out of the closet in full panic, broom in hand, yelling, "It's me." I called. They told me to stay put while they searched the house. And then I heard them laughing. Not just chuckling, laughing. Turns out, the thud was the cat knocking over a lamp in the hallway. The footsteps were my own echo off the hardwood. But that wasn't the worst part. While one officer explained this to me, another had wandered into the backyard and opened the smoker. Now, let me explain something about smoked chicken. It looks weird. The outer layer gets very dark, borderline black if you're not careful. This chicken, due to my novice technique and a little too much sugar in the rub, looked like something out of a crematorium. The officer yells, "We got something," and suddenly everyone's rushing outside. I stumble out behind them, trying to explain, but they're all standing around the smoker like it's the holy grail of forensic evidence. One officer pokes the chicken with his pen. Another radios in something about possible remains. I swear to you, it looked exactly like a charred skull at first glance. The way the meat pulled back from the bone, the empty cavity from where I'd taken out the giblets, it was like Ed Gein's dinner special. I kept trying to explain it was just a chicken. Store-bought. Rotisserie aspirations, not a murder scene. But they were already taping off the yard, and more cruisers showed up. A detective arrived. A detective. He was not amused. He asked me to describe, in detail, how I prepared the body. That was not the phrase I was hoping to hear. I walked him through the seasoning, the dry brine, the light smoke of hickory and applewood chips. I even showed him the packaging from the chicken, which I had luckily tossed in the outdoor trash bin. Eventually, he sighed and said, "It does smell good, I'll give you that." They took photos. They took notes. They even took the chicken, for some reason, I guess to be tested. I had to sign a statement saying I was not, in fact, cooking a human body in my backyard. They left about 2 hours later. My neighbors, who had gathered on their porches with popcorn and folding chairs, applauded. The next morning, one of the officers returned the chicken in a plastic evidence bag. He handed it to me with a straight face and said, "You're free to eat this, if you still want to." I did not want to. I still do not want to. My girlfriend came home Sunday night to find me sitting on the couch, glassy-eyed, the chicken evidence bag in the trash, and the smoker in pieces on the curb. I told her everything. She laughed so hard she cried. Then she picked up the broom and said, "My hero. Now every time the cat knocks something over," she says, "better get the cops." And the worst part? The chicken actually smelled amazing. I ruined a perfect meal, my dignity, and possibly my future reputation with law enforcement. So yeah. TIFU by making a chicken so suspicious looking it got treated like a corpse. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to the channel. It helps the content grow and motivates me to create even more great videos. Turn on notifications so you don't miss any new uploads. By the way, I'm curious, when do you usually watch my videos? While working, studying, or just relaxing at home? Let me know in the comments, I'd love to hear from you. Thank you for your support. So this happened about 2 weeks ago and I'm still riding the wave of humiliation and family group chat memes. For context, I, 29M, have been dating my girlfriend Claire, 28F, for a little over a year now. Things have been going great, she's smart, hilarious, a fellow disaster in the kitchen, and she gets my weirdness, which is rare. We recently hit that meet the parents milestone, and I was determined to nail it. Claire's dad, Rick, is a gruff but good-natured guy. Former Marine, now works as a mechanic and spends most weekends tinkering around his house in the suburbs, your classic hands-on, salt-of-the-earth kind of dude. He wasn't cold to me, exactly, but definitely gave off prove-yourself vibes. Think stoic nods and grunts over handshakes. So when he casually mentioned he was rebuilding the shed in his backyard and could use an extra set of hands, I saw my chance. I immediately volunteered. Claire looked surprised, probably because I'm about as handy as a Labrador in oven mitts, but I was determined to make a good impression. I figured it would just be a few hours of carrying wood, maybe hammering a nail or two. How hard could it be? Spoiler, very. Saturday rolls around. I show up in my oldest jeans and my I lift things face. Rick greets me with the same deadpan nod, tosses me a pair of work gloves, and we get to it. At first, it's actually kind of fun. There's something satisfying about destroying the old, leaning shed and hauling off busted planks. Rick even cracks a smile when I manage to smash a wall with a sledgehammer and not break my foot. Then we get to rebuilding. This is where it starts to go downhill. I'm trying to follow his instructions, but the man is fast. I turn around to grab nails and he's already 3 steps ahead, attaching joists and muttering stuff about measurements that I absolutely do not understand. Still, I keep nodding like I do. When he heads inside to grab a real drill, I didn't know there were fake ones, I decide to be helpful and keep things moving. He had been talking about sealing some joints with adhesive and mentioned using his propane torch to tighten the flashing around the base of the walls. He even showed me once, very briefly. So when I saw the torch sitting there, my brain went, ah. Initiative. Let's impress the man. So I grab it. I remember him saying something about heating the metal just enough to mold it around the wood. I also remember him saying don't go full blast unless you want to roast your eyebrows off, but that part came to mind after. I ignite the torch. There's a satisfying whoosh. I aim it at the metal flashing, trying to mimic what he did. Only I didn't realize that the wood below had been treated with something flammable. Very flammable. Within seconds, the bottom corner of the shed whooshes back at me, flames licking up the side like it's auditioning for a fast and furious explosion. I panic. I drop the torch. Bad move number 2. It hits the grass, which is dry because it hasn't rained in a week, and now I've got fire in 2 places. Rick comes back out right at this moment and just stares. I am stomping one fire and throwing a tarp at the other. I shout, "I got this," as the tarp immediately catches fire, creating a lovely third location for the flames to spread. The man doesn't yell. Doesn't even run. He walks back inside, calm as hell, and returns with a fire extinguisher. One blast and everything's covered in white foam. Silence. A bird chirps somewhere. I smell like burnt rubber and shame. He just looks at me, raises an eyebrow, and says, "So, you good with power tools too?" Reader, I wanted to dig a hole under the charred remains of the shed and bury myself. Claire shows up about 20 minutes later after Rick texted her to come collect her firefighter. She sees the mess and laughs. Not just a chuckle, doubled over, tears in her eyes kind of laugh. She takes a picture. Sends it to her entire family. I am now the subject of several memes, including one where someone photoshopped me into a fireman calendar with the tagline "Hotter than he looks." To his credit, Rick didn't seem mad. He actually seemed amused. Like I was a living episode of Home Improvement. The next time I visited, he had printed out one of the memes and taped it to the fridge. But the shed was toast. Literally. Insurance covered some of the loss, but I still felt awful. I offered to pay, he refused. I offered again, and he told me I could repay him by never touching anything flammable again. Fair. Since then, I've been promoted from that guy Claire's dating to Firestarter. Her little brother calls me Smokey. Even Claire's grandma sent me a fire extinguisher for Easter with a card that said, "For your next project." So yeah. I wanted to make a good impression, and instead I nearly torched a retired Marine's backyard. On the bright side, I guess I'm unforgettable. So this happened about 2 weeks ago, and I've just now reached a point where I can laugh about it. Mostly. My face still twitches when someone says candles. A little background, I live in a small mountain town where everyone knows everyone, or at least pretends to. I moved here last year from a big city because I was done with corporate burnout and wanted a quieter life. My job allows me to work remotely, and I bought a modest cabin that backs onto the forest. It's great. Quiet. Peaceful. Or, it was. There's a community center that hosts events for locals, stuff like pottery classes, hiking meetups, book clubs, and the infamous monthly full moon potluck, which I had never attended until this fateful day. Anyway, my TIFU began when I matched with this girl, Lena, on a dating app. She was outdoorsy, super sweet, and way more attractive than I had any right to expect. We'd been on a few dates, but nothing serious. Still, when she invited me to the full moon potluck, I figured it was a good way to meet more people and show her I could be part of the community. Now, I should have realized something was off when she told me to bring something spiritually nourishing instead of a normal dish. I asked for clarification and she said anything that feeds the soul. I assumed this was just small-town hippie speak for something healthy or vegetarian, so I brought a quinoa salad and a few tall beeswax candles for ambience. Because why not, right? Wrong. So very wrong. The potluck is held in a clearing near the woods, with wooden benches and picnic tables under strings of fairy lights. It's actually kind of magical. I show up early with my candles, salad, and the kind of over-prepared picnic gear that screams trying too hard. I noticed immediately that the vibe was different. Everyone was wearing flowing white clothing or loose earth-toned outfits. There was someone playing an ocarina. No one seemed to be talking above a whisper. A woman named Gaia, not even joking, handed me a sprig of lavender and welcomed me home. I should have left right then. But Lena showed up, glowing like she'd stepped out of a Pinterest vision board, kissed me on the cheek, and whispered, "You're exactly the energy we need tonight." That sentence still haunts me. Things started off normalish. People gathered, talked quietly, and shared weirdly shaped loaves of gluten-free bread. Someone offered me kombucha brewed with moon water, which I pretended to like. Then Lena announced that she had a ceremony planned and asked everyone to gather in a circle. Now here's where I really it up. She pulled me into the center of the circle with her. I thought this was some kind of cute little welcome the newcomer ritual. So, trying to be funny and play along, I pulled the candles out of my bag, lit them, and placed them in a triangle around us. The crowd gasps. Like actual gasps. Someone muttered he knows, another whispered the symbol of the triad. I thought they were messing with me, so I did a dramatic bow and said, "Let the ritual begin." Lena's face went through several emotions in the span of 2 seconds, confusion, horror, something that looked like awe. Before I could say anything else, she turned to the crowd and said, "He's accepted the role." The crowd murmured in agreement. I whispered to Lena, "What role?" She replied, dead serious, "The keeper." That's when a shirtless man wearing nothing but linen pants and a dreamcatcher necklace knelt before me and offered me a bowl of something that smelled like patchouli and despair. I panicked and said, "Thanks, but I'm allergic to whatever this is." Apparently, refusing the bowl is a sign of inner conflict. The group takes this as a cue to begin a cleansing chant. They all start humming and swaying. I'm trapped in the middle of a forest circle, surrounded by candlelight, being serenaded by a cult. But it gets worse. Lena steps forward and says, "Before we release him to the night, I have one question." And then she pulls out a freaking ring box. I swear time froze. I thought I was hallucinating. The ocarina player started playing a slow tune. Someone began tossing flower petals. Lena drops to one knee and says, "Will you walk this path with me, Keeper of Light?" I didn't know what to say. My brain just gave up. I looked around, desperate for an exit. That's when I backed into one of the candles and knocked it over, onto someone's robe. Cue panic. The robe caught fire instantly, apparently it was some kind of homemade hemp poly blend. People screamed. Someone yelled, "The fire is part of it," which confused everyone even more. A guy threw a bottle of kombucha at the flames like it was holy water. I tried to help put out the fire, tripped over a root, and headbutted the ocarina guy. He went down, the ocarina broke in half, and he let out the most guttural wail I've ever heard. It echoed off the trees like a banshee shriek. Dogs started barking in the distance. Meanwhile, Lena is on her knees in front of me, tears in her eyes, holding the ring. People are either trying to put out the fire or chanting louder in a confused frenzy. Someone tried to lead me to a stump to ascend. I bolted. I grabbed my salad, don't ask why, ran through the trees, and didn't stop until I reached my car. I could still hear the chanting as I peeled out of the parking lot. I didn't talk to Lena for a few days, hoping she'd forget or maybe think I was a forest spirit who vanished after the cleansing fire. But she texted me. She said she was disappointed but understanding, and that I'd opened the way for the next keeper. She then unmatched me. I later learned that the full moon potluck is not just a potluck. It's a ritual gathering for a loosely formed spiritual group that believes in seasonal energetic transfers and the ascension of chosen guides. The Keeper of Light is apparently an honorary title passed down during the spring equinox. I had no idea I'd walked into a proposal ceremony and cult initiation all at once. Also, I got banned from the community center for reckless energy manifestation. Anyway, I've started going to trivia nights in the next town over. Much safer crowd. TIFU by letting my overactive imagination, Reddit sleuthing skills, and an unfortunate llama situation turn me into a divorced man with a criminal record and a story too stupid to make up. My wife, now ex-wife, but we'll get there, has been into yoga for years. She's one of those people who can do a headstand on a paddleboard while humming some Sanskrit chant. I can barely touch my toes without sounding like I'm passing a kidney stone. Opposites attract, right? Anyway, last year she told me she was going on a weekend-long yoga retreat with some of the girls from her studio. She's done this before, usually up in the mountains or some Airbnb that smells like patchouli and regrets. This time she was weirdly vague about where exactly they were going. She just said, off-grid, nature, no signal, I'll send you a location pin before we leave. Cool. I trust her. Or I did. Friday rolls around. She leaves in the morning, kisses me goodbye, throws her duffel in her friend Kara's Prius, and off they go. Later that day, I get the promised location pin, some rural area 2 hours out, near a place called Willow Ridge. Here's where the idiocy begins. I get curious. Mostly because she sent no photos all weekend. No stories. No updates. Not even a single OMG this view. That's weird for her. I check the pin again. It's not near a yoga studio or a wellness center. It's next to something called Willow Ridge Llama Sanctuary. So of course, I do what any insecure dumbass with an internet connection and a Reddit account would do, I spiral. Google turns up nothing about the sanctuary except a poorly made Facebook page from 2014 and a Yelp review about a llama named Buttercup who spit on a toddler. I dig deeper. I find a Reddit thread where someone mentions that Willow Ridge used to be a code name for a swingers meetup spot. I'm not even sure if it's true, but my brain just ran with it. All weekend I stew. I try calling her Saturday. No answer. Text? Nothing. Meanwhile, my imagination is staging full-blown orgies in the woods with candles and llama-themed masks. Sunday night rolls around. Still no contact. I'm half drunk, emotionally dehydrated, and one true crime podcast away from losing my mind. I decide I need to know. I need proof. So I get in my car. I drive 2 hours to Willow Ridge. It's pitch black, 11:30 p.m. I park down the road, throw on a hoodie like some dollar store ninja, and sneak toward the pin location. I cross a wooden fence and immediately realize I'm in the middle of a farm. There are, in fact, llamas. They are not graceful, peaceful animals like you might imagine. They are terrifying, beady-eyed demons that hum at you menacingly. I step in something squishy that definitely isn't mud, but I press on. I spot a small wooden building with lights on. Voices. Female voices. My heart is pounding. I crawl up to the window like a raccoon and peek inside. There they are. My wife, her yoga friends, a teacher who looks like Gandalf in spandex, and a circle of, well, normal people. They are drinking tea. One is knitting. There is zero nudity. Zero swinging. Just a bunch of people doing breathwork and discussing inner light. I breathe a huge sigh of relief. Too loud, apparently, because the next thing I know, I get tackled from behind. Hard. Turns out llama sanctuaries have night security. And that security is a 73-year-old ex-Marine named Don who can still bench press a grown man. I go down face first into a pile of llama poop, screaming something like I'm just looking for my wife, which, in hindsight, sounds very kidnapping adjacent. Within minutes, there are lights, yelling, and my wife appears in her pajamas, absolutely horrified. Not horrified like oh no you caught me, but more like what the hell are you doing at a llama farm at midnight? Police arrive. Yes, real cops. Because apparently wandering around private property at night in a hoodie near a bunch of women ticks several legal boxes. I get cuffed. My wife is explaining between sobs that I'm her husband, and I'm trying to say something about Reddit and orgies, which isn't helping. They let me go after confirming my identity and after the llama sanctuary agrees not to press charges. I still got a fine for trespassing. Dawn offered me a wet wipe and a very disappointed shake of the head. The car ride back was silent. When we got home, she went to bed in the guest room. She filed for divorce 2 weeks later. Said it wasn't the first time I let paranoia and bad judgment screw things up. She wasn't wrong. There were signs, and this just broke the camel's back. Or the llamas. Now I live in a one-bedroom apartment that smells like sadness and microwave burritos. I've deleted Reddit from my phone, and whenever I see a llama, I flinch. I learned a few things from this. Lamas are evil. Yoga retreats are not always a cover for sex cults. And maybe, just maybe, trust should be stronger than whatever conspiracy your 2 a.m. brain cooks up while scrolling r/relationships. So this happened last weekend, and I've just now regained enough dignity to speak about it. I was invited to a wedding, my coworker's cousin, which is exactly the kind of invite you get when you're not quite a friend but you once helped them move a couch and they feel mildly indebted to you. I didn't know anyone besides my coworker, but the wedding was in a fancy old estate with those cathedral ceilings and chandeliers that look like they could kill 5 people if they fell. The whole thing screamed I'm expensive, but rustic. I get there early, and while people are milling around drinking mimosas and trying not to sweat through their linen shirts, I spot a beautiful grand piano near the bar. It's glossy, black, probably worth more than my car, and clearly not just a decoration. There's sheet music on it and a little sign that says Live Music by Julian. But no Julian in sight. I don't know what possessed me, but I had a drink in my hand and some champagne confidence in my veins, so I wandered over and sat down on the bench, just to look cool, you know? Like, oh yeah, I'm just a casual guy who appreciates classical instruments and probably knows what an arpeggio is. The crowd didn't care, but this one older lady walking past smiled and said, "Are you the pianist?" And instead of correcting her like a normal, honest man, I said, "Yeah, I'll be playing later." Boom. That was the moment I sealed my fate. You see, I don't play the piano. I mean, I took like 2 lessons in middle school before quitting because the teacher said I had the rhythm of a malfunctioning Roomba. I can maybe pick out the first 10 seconds of chopsticks if you give me enough time and a diagram of the keys. But this lady? She clapped her hands together like a kid on Christmas and said, "Oh wonderful, we were worried you wouldn't make it." And then she scurried off to tell someone else. And suddenly people are looking at me like I'm the entertainment, like I'm Julian the talented wedding pianist. Panic. I thought about running. But my coworker was across the room watching this unfold, and he gave me a thumbs up like, "Nice man, didn't know you played." So now I'm stuck. I figured I'd just fake it, sit there when the music was supposed to start, maybe press a few keys real slow and artsy like, pretend the sustain pedal is doing all the work. And then the bride's father comes up to me, yes, the father of the bride, and says, "Listen, Julian, I know we asked for light classical, but could you open with something emotional? Today's been a lot." And he claps me on the shoulder, tears in his eyes, and walks off. Now I'm sweating. My drink is gone. My soul is slowly leaving my body. And then the wedding planner tells everyone to be seated. It's starting. The bride is literally behind a curtain, and I'm sitting at this grand piano, expected to provide the soundtrack to the happiest moment of this couple's life. There is no escape. I stare at the sheet music. It might as well be ancient hieroglyphs. I can read letters, not floating dots and spaghetti. But the room goes quiet. Everyone turns. It's go time. So I press a single key. It makes a sound. No one reacts. I press another. Then 2 at the same time. That's called a chord, right? I try to move my fingers like I've seen pianists do, just random spread finger attacks on the keys, hoping it sounds vaguely like something a tortured French composer might have written during a nervous breakdown. A few people nod. Someone sighs emotionally. They think it's intentional. Encouraged by this, I go harder. My left hand starts doing these low, dramatic thuds while my right dances up and down the high keys in what I can only describe as a musical seizure. It's chaos. It's nonsense. But it's emotional, and then I get cocky. I try to stand while playing, don't ask why. I saw someone do it in a movie once, and I accidentally hit the damn transpose button on the side. Suddenly everything I play is an octave too high, and it sounds like I've summoned a haunted circus calliope. The bride appears at the top of the aisle. I panic. I slam a cluster of keys in what I hoped would be dramatic punctuation but instead sounds like a car crash in a music store. I try to recover, but my hands are sweaty and I accidentally elbow the metronome switch, so now there's a loud click 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 blaring through the speakers at 120 BPM. People are glancing around, confused. The officiant looks at me like, what the hell is this? And then, the real Julian arrives. He's out of breath, carrying his suit jacket, and freezes when he sees me at the piano. I try to stand and clap like, asterisk, oh thank God, you're here. Asterisk, but everyone's now just staring at me and him, waiting for an explanation. Julian approaches and says, who are you? I say, I'm a friend of the family. He says, you're not the pianist. I say, I know. And then I just walk away. No further explanation. I leave the bench, step down the aisle past the confused guests, and walk straight out the side door. I didn't even stay for the reception. I Ubered home in complete silence, deleted the group chat, and have since avoided all contact with that coworker. He texted me once saying, dude, what the hell was that? And I replied, performance art. I've now been sent 3 different videos of my performance, each with worse audio quality and increasing numbers of laughing emojis. One was uploaded to TikTok with the caption, when the wedding pianist turns into the Phantom of the Opera mid-ceremony. I've also been contacted by 2 friends of the groom asking if I do parties. I said yes. Because apparently I'm a pianist now. So this happened a few months ago, but I still get cold sweats thinking about it. I'm a 27-year-old guy, and I had been dating my girlfriend, Sarah, for about a year and a half when she invited me to finally meet her parents. She's always talked them up as these traditional, proper, Southern-style folks who host Sunday suppers with extended family every other weekend. I'm more of a frozen pizza and do we have clean forks kind of guy, but I really wanted to make a good impression. In my infinite wisdom, I thought it would be charming if I brought a dish to contribute. But not just any dish, no. I decided to lie through my teeth and say I had a famous family recipe for baked mac and cheese that goes back generations. I don't know why I did this. My actual family recipes consist of ordering Chinese and arguing about whose turn it is to pay. But once I said it, it became real. Sarah was thrilled. They're going to love that, she said. Mom's really big on food with a story. Great. So I start Googling the hell out of mac and cheese recipes, trying to Frankenstein together something that would taste like the food equivalent of a warm hug. I spend a week experimenting in secret, buying different cheeses I can't pronounce, burning roux like it's my side hustle, and watching YouTube chefs who call everything unctuous. Eventually, I land on something that doesn't make me gag and looks fairly legitimate. I test it on my roommate, who says, it's actually kinda fire, dude. This is high praise from a man whose culinary gold standard is gas station taquitos. The big day comes. I put on my best I totally don't feel like an imposter face, carry my bubbling tray of deception to Sarah's parents' house, and were greeted by her mom, dad, and a lot of extended family. Like, 12 people. Apparently this was a whole Sunday supper plus cousin's birthday hybrid event. The table is already covered in food, honey ham, green beans with bacon, cornbread, mashed potatoes, deviled eggs. It smells incredible. My mac and cheese goes in the center, and Sarah's mom lights up when I say, family recipe. She smiles and says, oh, we love traditional recipes. Can't wait to try it. We all sit. Plates start circulating. People dig in. And then it happens. The first sign of trouble is the silence. It's not a respectful silence. It's the kind of silence that hits when someone realizes they might be chewing on a mistake. Her uncle is the first to speak. He says, this is interesting. That's it. No follow-up. Then her cousin makes a face like he's just remembered a trauma and goes, is this cinnamon? Yes. There was cinnamon. In my panic to elevate the flavor during my final test batch, I read an article that said adding a touch of warm spice can give mac and cheese depth. So I'd added cinnamon and nutmeg. You know, like it's a pie. Her mom, trying to be kind, says it's very unique, but she can't get through more than 2 bites. Sarah, bless her, is trying to eat it like a soldier at war, making eye contact with me like she's offering emotional CPR. Her dad doesn't speak at all. He just keeps chewing, very slowly, with the 1,000-yard stare of a man remembering Vietnam. Then, the toddler cousin actually spits it out onto his plate and announces, "It's yucky." Which, honestly, was the most accurate review. But the worst part, the absolute soul-destroying cherry on top, was when Sarah's mom says, "So, what's the story behind this recipe? You said it's from your family?" Panic. I go full improv mode. "Oh, yeah, it's from my great-grandma, who came over from, Ireland. Yeah. She used to make it for family gatherings back in the early 1900s. Ireland," her mom says, confused. "I don't think mac and cheese is an Irish dish." Well, see, it was her own twist. Yeah. She added spices because she liked a sweet salty mix. Cinnamon, her dad finally says, eyes narrowed like he's solving a murder. "In mac and cheese?" I nod like a fool. "Just a pinch." Adds warmth. There is an awkward silence that lasts forever and then someone thankfully changes the subject. I want to crawl into the oven and turn it to 450. The rest of the meal passes without further comment on the mac and cheese. Sarah's mom kindly wraps it up for the road, but I know that Trey hit the trash can 5 minutes after we left. On the drive home, Sarah finally breaks into laughter. Not a little giggle but full-on, can't breathe, mascara-running laughter. She says, "Why didn't you just make normal mac and cheese?" I admit the truth. That I was trying to impress her family. That I wanted to seem like I had some sort of wholesome, culinary heritage. She just shakes her head and says, "Next time, just bring ice cream." The punchline? Her mom texted Sarah the next day with a polite thank you and added, "Tell him next time he can just bring soda." No pressure. So now I am the legend of the spiced mac and cheese at Sunday suppers. Apparently her uncle has taken to calling it dessert pasta. Sarah still brings it up when she wants to tease me. And the worst part? I still have a half-used container of nutmeg in my pantry, sitting there like a tiny bottle of shame. So this happened last weekend, and I'm only now coming to terms with how absolutely deranged it was. A little backstory first. I, a 29M, recently moved back to my hometown after nearly a decade away. New job, new apartment, that whole reinvention thing. I was feeling nostalgic and decided to reconnect with some people I'd drifted away from, especially my childhood best friend, Ryan. Ryan and I were thick as thieves in high school, one of those friendships where you basically live at each other's house, know each other's locker combos, and have an entire language of inside jokes. But we fell out of touch when I moved out for college. I always meant to hit him up, but life happened. Anyway, last week, I was scrolling Facebook, I know, ancient tech, and saw that Ryan had posted for the first time in forever. It was a photo of a sunset with some poetic caption, but more importantly, I realized he still lived in town. I clicked through his profile, saw he'd gotten married, had a kid, and seemed to be doing well. Feeling impulsive, I shot him a message, "Hey man. Back in town. Would love to catch up, coffee or beer on me." Surprisingly, he responded pretty quickly. He said he'd love to see me, and asked if I was free Saturday afternoon. I said absolutely, and he sent me an address and said 2 p.m., just come in when you get there. I didn't think twice about how vague that was. I assumed it was his house. Maybe a backyard hangout or something chill. Saturday rolls around. I dress decently, jeans and a button-up. I grab a 6-pack of local craft beer to be polite, hop in my car, and drive over. The neighborhood is unfamiliar, but nice. I find the address and pull up to this big, well-kept house. Lots of cars parked along the street. I think, wow, must be a small get-together, maybe his kid's birthday or something? I walk up, beer in hand, and open the front door as instructed. That's when I immediately feel the icy breath of ed up *** crawl up my spine. The room is dead silent. Everyone is dressed in black. Somber faces. A huge portrait of an elderly woman surrounded by candles and flowers dominates the living room. The air smells faintly of lilies and grief. And there I am, smiling, holding a six-pack, looking like I'm about to ask if they've got room for beer pong. Every pair of eyes turns to me. Time dilates. I'm standing in a black hole of judgment. Before I can even form words, a middle-aged woman starts crying harder. A guy in the back whispers something to someone, and I see them shaking their head. I freeze. Then, like a miracle, I spot Ryan, older, bearded, wearing a black dress shirt, standing near the kitchen with a glass of water. His eyes widen when he sees me, like he just remembered I existed. He quickly walks over and whispers through gritted teeth, "Dude. What the F*** are you doing here?" I'm so shocked I just stammer, "You told me to come at 2, he looks mortified. "I thought I messaged you back to reschedule. This is my wife's grandmother's funeral. I want to die. Actually, no, I want to vanish, implode, cease." I look down at the beer in my hand and realize the label says, "Happy Ending." I nearly vomit from sheer embarrassment. I thought this was a hangout, I mumble, realizing I am now actively ruining a sacred moment for an entire extended family. "I'll explain later," Ryan hisses. "Just go. Please." I turn, feeling every eyeball pierce the back of my soul as I shuffle back out the door. I don't even close it properly. I get in my car and just sit there, heart pounding, face burning. I think about driving into the sun. Instead, I go home and crawl under my blanket like a ghost trying to haunt my own shame. I don't hear from Ryan for a couple days. Then he messages, "That was possibly the most insane thing that has ever happened to me." I'm not mad, just, Jesus, man. I apologize 100 times. I offer to pay for flowers or something. He says it's okay, but I probably shouldn't try to drop by uninvited ever again. To this day, I still don't understand how I missed the reschedule message. Maybe it didn't send. Maybe I was so hyped to reconnect that I skipped reading carefully. Maybe the Facebook algorithm conspired to ruin me. But one thing is for sure, I will never again walk into a building without knowing 100% what's going on inside. I've had anxiety before, but nothing compares to crashing a funeral with craft beer and a smile, only to realize you've become a live-action cringe compilation. And now, I'll forever be the guy who unintentionally brought Happy Ending to AF *****ing memorial service. TIFU by being too honest on a date with a girl I really liked and accidentally confessing to a crime I didn't know was technically a crime. Let me preface this by saying I'm not a bad person. I'm just a guy who overthinks, underthinks, and then panic thinks all at once. So when I matched with Emily, not her real name, on a dating app a few weeks ago, I was determined not to screw it up. She's smart, funny, insanely pretty, and into weird niche documentaries like me. A unicorn. I was nervous from the start. Our first few messages were smooth. She joked that I seemed oddly honest for a dating app guy, and I took that as a compliment. I pride myself on being real, you know? She seemed into that. So, we agreed to meet for dinner at this quirky little Italian place downtown. Cozy lighting, exposed brick, the kind of place where you either fall in love or cry into your lasagna. The first 45 minutes were perfect. We talked about our favorite conspiracy theories, hers, birds aren't real, mine, mattress stores are money laundering fronts, debated pineapple on pizza, she's pro, I'm neutral, and shared awkward middle school stories. Then she asked me about the weirdest thing I've ever done that I wouldn't tell most people. Now, I don't know what kind of emotional math I was doing in my brain, but I figured this was my moment to prove just how open and genuine I was. So I leaned in a little, like I was about to share state secrets, and I told her about the deer incident back in college, my roommate and I were driving back from a concert at like 2 a.m. on some back road in the middle of nowhere. Suddenly, a deer jumps out and bam, we hit it. We were both okay, but the deer, not so much. We got out, panicked, and then realized it wasn't totally dead. It was just lying there twitching and looking at us like, why? My roommate was like, we can't just leave it suffering, and I, in my infinite 20-year-old wisdom, said, okay, I'll take care of it. So, I did what any emotionally underdeveloped suburban kid who once watched Revenant and thought he understood wilderness ethics would do. I found a tire iron in the trunk and I helped the deer pass on. The issue was, right after that, another car came down the road. We panicked. I tossed the tire iron into the woods, we dragged the deer off the road, and played it cool. The guy stopped, asked if we were okay, and we lied and said it had just happened and we'd already called animal control. He drove off. We left shortly after, too shaken to think straight. I finished telling this story to Emily, expecting, I don't know, impressed horror? A nod of wow, that's dark but compassionate? What I got instead was her staring at me like I'd just admitted to cannibalism. Wait, she said, blinking. You beat a deer to death in the middle of the night and then hid the evidence? That sounded worse out loud than it did in my head. I mean, I was trying to be humane, I said quickly. It was suffering. And we didn't hide the evidence. We just didn't want to explain it to a stranger who might call the cops. She put her fork down. You know that's illegal, right? What? You can't just euthanize wildlife. It's considered animal cruelty or something unless you're a vet or a licensed professional. Cue my internal organs collectively puckering. I tried to laugh it off. It was like 10 years ago. But she wasn't laughing. She looked around like someone might have heard us. Jesus. You're lucky that guy didn't report your plates. At that point, the vibe was dead. Like, deer on the side of the road dead. We muddled through the rest of the dinner with her being polite but distant. No more talk of conspiracy theories. Just a long, awkward dessert where I learned she doesn't even like tiramisu. Who doesn't like tiramisu? The night ended with a stiff hug and a take care. No text the next day. Nothing. I'd bombed it. Hard. Here's the kicker though, I couldn't let it go. So in a moment of late-night anxiety and poor judgment, I googled the legality of what I did. And guess what? She was right, in my state, it's a Class A misdemeanor to knowingly and intentionally dispatch wildlife without a permit or proper cause. Turns out emotional panic and a vague sense of mercy is not a proper cause. There were even a few local news articles about people getting charged for less. I spiraled. I imagined cops knocking on my door. I imagined my mugshot under a headline like "Man confesses to deer slaying during Tinder date." I called my old roommate at 1 a.m. and he just laughed for 5 minutes straight before saying, "Dude, you're fine. That deer's bones have been mulch for a decade." But still, the anxiety wouldn't go away. Because this wasn't just a bad date. It was a bad date where I basically incriminated myself over spaghetti. And the worst part? I really liked her. Like, the kind of like where you imagine meeting her parents and making pancakes on Sundays and watching terrible documentaries on flat earthers together. And now she thinks I'm a deer murderer. So yeah. I haven't heard from her since, and I don't blame her. I've also scrubbed every similar story from my brain in case someone else asks me about the weirdest thing I've ever done. From now on, it's gonna be something safe and boring like once I accidentally washed my jeans with a Tide Pod still inside and wore soap-splotched pants for a week. Much less emotionally scarring. Moral of the story? Sometimes honesty isn't the best policy. Sometimes, just say you used to collect rocks or something. Hey, friends! If you enjoy this content, don't forget to like the video and share your thoughts in the comments. We really want to know what you like and what can be improved. What do you think of the video? Are there any topics you'd like to see in future videos? Your feedback really helps us get better. Thanks for being with us. TIFU. By pretending I could speak Russian to impress my girlfriend's dad, so I've been dating this girl, Emily, for about 7 months. She's awesome, smart, funny, great taste in music, and mercifully tolerant of my stupid jokes. Everything's been going really well. The thing is, I had yet to meet her parents until last weekend. They live a few states away, and with the holidays and work chaos, it just hadn't happened yet. Here's where I majorly screwed up. Her dad, Victor, is a Russian immigrant who's apparently got some pretty strong opinions about people dating his daughter. I'm told he's ex-military, speaks 5 languages, and has a handshake like a bear trap. Naturally, I was terrified. Emily tried to ease my nerves by saying, "Just try to talk to him about Russian history or culture, he loves that stuff." Now, I'm a chronic overpreparer. So what do? I spend the next week binge-watching YouTube videos about Russian history and military trivia. I even start using Duolingo to learn some basic Russian phrases. Not enough to hold a conversation, but enough to say hello and thank you and where is the train station. Which, honestly, I doubt I'd need, unless Victor suddenly challenged me to navigate the Moscow metro. The day comes. We fly in and head to her parents' place. Her mom is sweet and immediately hugs me. Victor, on the other hand, sizes me up like a drill sergeant inspecting a suspicious package. He says nothing, just grunts and gives me that firm handshake that nearly dislocates my shoulder. Trying to break the tension, I smile and nervously say, "Zdravstvuyte, Victor." "Hello, Victor." His eyebrows shoot up. "You speak Russian?" he asks, his eyes suddenly gleaming. Now, any sane man would have said, "Just a little," or "I'm learning." But no. Some part of my brain decided this was the time to go full method actor. I said, "Da, ya говорю по-русски." Yes, I speak Russian. A pause. Then Victor breaks into a wide grin and shouts something in Russian that I absolutely do not understand. It sounds like "Otlikno," followed by a barrage of rapid-fire syllables. I nod like an idiot, smile, and laugh as if he's just told a great joke. And then, it begins. He launches into a full conversation, all in Russian. I catch a few words: military, Moscow, winter, maybe tank? But for the most part, it's total gibberish to me. I panic. I nod. I say "da, yes," way too often. I even throw in a few words I remember from Duolingo, like koshka, cat, which made absolutely no sense in context, but he just kept going, totally delighted. Emily is standing behind him, her eyes wide with disbelief, silently mouthing, "What are you doing?" I can't answer. I'm in too deep. Over dinner, Victor insists I sit next to him. He starts quizzing me. I know because he gestures with a knife and fork like he's conducting a game show, and I catch the occasional "Kak tibia zovet?" What's your name? I manage that one, but he follows up with more complex stuff. I respond by smiling, giving vague nods, and repeating phrases I've heard in Cold War movies. At one point, he says something and everyone at the table laughs. I assume it's a joke and laugh too, only to realize a second later that it was a question. He looks confused. Emily glares at me like she wants to kill me. Then comes the disaster. Victor, clearly impressed with my fluency, decides we should bond over a classic Russian war film. He puts on The Ninth Company, no subtitles, full Russian audio. He pours us vodka. Not shots, * glasses star. Apparently, it's a tradition. I can't refuse without looking rude, so I join him. Every time someone dies in the movie, he toasts. Zagorov. To the heroes. More vodka. I have no idea what's happening in the film, but I nod solemnly like I understand the emotional gravity. By the end of the movie, I am absolutely smashed. Like forget your own name level drunk. Victor is still sharp as a tack, just casually sipping his 7th vodka like it's water. Then he turns to me and says something that sounds like a very serious question. He leans in close. There's silence. Emily's mom is watching, holding her breath. Emily is mouthing "no" from across the room. I panic. I say the only Russian phrase that comes to mind, "Ya lublю koshki." There is dead silence. Victor blinks. You love cats, he asks in English. I nod solemnly. Very much. He squints at me. Then leans back, takes a slow sip of vodka, and says in English, you do not speak Russian. I'm caught. The jig is up. I consider pretending to pass out, but my body beats me to it. I slump sideways on the couch and promptly vomit all over Victor's antique rug. Emily screams. Her mom runs for towels. Victor just stands there, arms crossed, looking at me like I'm the worst human being alive. The next morning, I wake up on the guest bed, my head pounding like a drumline. Emily walks in, throws me a Gatorade, and says, "You're apologizing for everything," which I did. To his credit, Victor eventually forgave me. Turns out he respected the hustle, in a weird way. He said, "You are idiot, but brave idiot." We've since bonded over chess, he obliterates me every time, and he's now teaching me actual Russian. Slowly. With a lot of mockery. Moral of the story, don't fake fluency in a language to impress your girlfriend's ex-Spetsnaz dad. Especially if vodka and war films are involved. So this happened last weekend, and I still feel like I'm living in some twisted Netflix drama. I, 28M, have been dating this amazing woman, Sarah, 26F, for about 5 months. Things have been going great, and she recently mentioned she wanted to meet my family. I'm pretty close to them, the mom, dad, younger sister Emily, 24, and my grandma. We're not the most conventional family, but we do these game nights every month where everyone shows up, eats too much food, drinks wine, and plays board games that inevitably devolve into chaos. Think Monopoly meets Gladiator. So, I figured this was the perfect opportunity for Sarah to meet everyone in a casual setting. I told her we'd be doing it at my parents' place Saturday evening. She was excited, even baked a cake to bring. All good vibes. We arrive and everything seems normal. Mom greets us at the door, Dad's manning the grill in the backyard, my sister's already 1 glass of wine in and yelling about how she's gonna destroy everyone in code names. Sarah fits in perfectly. She's laughing with my grandma, helping set up the table, totally vibing with the family. I'm feeling pretty proud of how well she's getting along with everyone. Then halfway through the evening, things take a sharp left. We're about to start the second round of codenames when the doorbell rings. My dad, who had just sat down, freezes for a second and says, "I'll get it," way too quickly. Like, weirdly quickly. Everyone kind of pauses, but then continues setting up the game. Except he doesn't come back. Like, 15 minutes go by. We're all sitting there like, did he go to the store? Did he get abducted? My mom starts looking concerned, so I get up to go check. As I turn the corner into the front hallway, I hear voices. Arguing. One is definitely my dad. The other is a woman's. And a kid. I pause, thinking maybe a neighbor dropped by with their kid or something? Nope. I come around the corner and there's my dad standing with a woman I've never seen before, maybe mid-30s, clearly pissed, and a boy, probably 10 years old, who looks suspiciously like a younger version of me at that age. I mean, same brown hair, same annoyed expression. And the kicker? The kid is holding a birthday card that says, "Happy birthday, Dad." I just stand there like a stunned deer. My dad notices me and goes pale. The woman turns and says, "Oh, so this is your other family," with that venom-coated sarcasm only someone deeply betrayed can deliver. My brain is struggling to process. Other? Family? Then she turns to me and says, "You must be my name. I've heard all about you. You're the older son." My soul leaves my body. At this point, my mom comes to see what's taking so long, and it's like a nuclear bomb went off in the entryway. She sees the woman, sees the kid, looks at my dad, and just whispers, "You didn't." Turns out, my dad has been living a double life for over a decade. A whole-ass second family in a neighboring town. He met this woman, let's call her Lisa, during some business networking event years ago, and somehow maintained the most elaborate lie I've ever witnessed. Alternate schedules, business trips that weren't business trips, burner phones, the works. The kid, who's named Marcus, just turned 10. This whole time, my dad had been somehow balancing two separate realities like some deranged sitcom character, but with none of the charm and all of the trauma. What unraveled next was the most uncomfortable, chaotic hour of my life. Lisa apparently got suspicious over the past few months, started putting together the weird inconsistencies, and decided to do some digging. She found our address, saw pictures of us on Facebook, realized what was happening, and decided to confront him on game night, thinking everyone would be home. She wasn't wrong. Sarah, poor thing, is standing in the kitchen clutching her cake like it's a flotation device and watching my entire family implode. Emily is crying, my mom is just stone silent, and my grandma says something like, "Well, I always knew something was off about him," which doesn't help, Grandma. Eventually, Lisa storms out with Marcus, telling my dad he's going to hear from her lawyer. My dad tries to say something to my mom, and she just turns away and walks upstairs without a word. He follows her, and we don't see either of them the rest of the night. The rest of us are left sitting in the living room, stunned. Sarah and I eventually leave after offering some awkward hugs. She rides silently in the car for about 15 minutes before quietly asking, "Do you think you'll ever talk to your dad again?" Honestly, I didn't know what to say. The fallout has been biblical. My mom hasn't answered my dad's calls. Emily moved back in with Mom for the time being. And I've been getting texts from Lisa asking if I'd ever want to get to know Marcus, which is surreal. I haven't talked to my dad yet. I keep thinking about how many birthdays, soccer games, and school events he must have missed or lied about to make this whole circus work. And also, what the hell kind of mental gymnastics do you have to do to casually play board games with one family while hiding an entire other one? Needless to say, Sarah hasn't asked to come to another game night. Not that we'll be having one anytime soon. On the bright side, she did say, "Well, at least it wasn't you who ed up, which might be the lowest bar of approval in history, but I'll take it." So yeah. TIFU by trying to introduce my girlfriend to my normal family. Turns out, we're one DNA test away from becoming a limited series. TIFU by getting involved in what I thought was just a wholesome online antique rug auction, but turned out to be a front for an international art smuggling operation. So I've recently moved into a new apartment and got it in my head that I needed a vintage Persian rug to tie the room together. I've been watching too much home decor YouTube, and apparently, rugs are the soul of a room. I didn't want one of those mass-produced IKEA things, I wanted something with history. Something that had been stepped on by ancient royalty or at least somebody's weird uncle in 1950s Tehran. I stumbled on this sketchy-looking website that sold heritage rugs with provenance. It wasn't very slick, but they had a bunch of beautiful-looking carpets, all listed as part of some estate auction. The prices were oddly reasonable for what they were claiming, like $600 for a 19th-century hand-knotted Tabriz silk rug. I know that sounds suspicious, but my brain just whispered, "It's a steal," instead of, "This is money laundering, you idiot." I picked out one with an insane pattern that looked like a kaleidoscope puked onto a sunset, paid for it via wire transfer, yes, I know, and waited. 3 weeks later, a package arrived. Not a rug-sized package. A small wooden crate, about 2 feet long, maybe a foot wide, and sealed like it contained cursed pirate treasure. I was confused but excited. Maybe they sent me a bonus artifact. Who knows what kind of cool, mysterious *T you get with antique rugs. I pried the crate open and inside, no rug. Just an elaborately wrapped scroll in what looked like oiled linen, and a wooden box with metal fittings. I open the scroll. It's an ink painting of a mountain temple with monks, trees, and birds that are more detailed than my actual retinas. It looked old. Like Smithsonian old. Still in that stupid haze of maybe this is what they meant by provenance? I opened the second box. Inside is a book. Handbound, calligraphy, pages so thin I could see through them, and I swear to God it was written in Chinese. Ancient Chinese, maybe. The only English words were on a slip of yellow paper tucked inside, "Keep safe until collection." Thank you. Now, the smarter version of me from literally any other day would have thought, time to call the authorities. But no, not post-rug hunting me. I emailed the site asking if this was some mistake. No response. I tried calling the number on their contact page. Disconnected. The website itself vanished 2 days later. Just 404D into the void. Hue rising anxiety. I shoved the scroll and book under my bed and decided to forget about it. Fast forward a week, and someone buzzes my apartment building claiming to be a courier. I go down. Dude's wearing a suit that looks like it cost more than my car. He holds out a photo of the scroll and says, "We're here for the delivery." I panic. I tell him I have no idea what he's talking about. He nods, doesn't press, and says, "We'll return." Then he walks back into a black Mercedes and drives off like he's in a Jason Bourne movie. That night I barely sleep. I'm 95% sure I've been roped into some kind of black market deal. The next morning, I call the non-emergency police line and try to explain. They basically treat me like I'm reporting a lost sock. "Have you been threatened, sir?" "Well, not technically, but call us back if you feel endangered." So, naturally, I do the next best thing. I go to Reddit. I post in a weird antiquities subreddit asking if anyone knows what I've got. Some guy DMs me, says he's a PhD in East Asian art history, and asks to see pictures. I send them. His response? "Where did you get this? This might be Tang Dynasty. If it's real, it's priceless. Like, museum level." My stomach becomes a singularity. I tell him the whole story, minus the dumb rug part because I still had some pride left. He says I need to get it authenticated immediately. Offers to help. We arrange to meet at a university campus the next day. I show up, scroll in a tube, book in a backpack, sweating through my shirt. He's waiting with 2 colleagues and a camera crew. Turns out, they were filming a documentary on lost artifacts and thought this might be a career-defining find. They carefully unroll the scroll, examine the brushstrokes, freak out. Same with the book. They're basically losing their minds in academic ecstasy while I sit there realizing I'm either about to be on the news or deported. Then comes the twist. As they're photographing it, a security guard approaches, followed by 2 very official-looking men in suits. Not the same as the ones from before. These guys are from some government department I've never heard of. They flash IDs, ask to speak with me privately. Long story short, the scroll and book were stolen from a Chinese museum 2 years ago. Smuggled through Turkey, vanished into the black market, and somehow ended up under my bed. I spend the next 6 hours in a locked room explaining everything from my home decor goals to how I thought provenance was just a fancy word for old. They finally believe I didn't know what I was involved in. One of the agents says something like, "Honestly, you're just lucky we got to you before they did." I didn't ask who they were. I didn't want to know. They took the scroll and the book. I signed about 11 different forms. I'm technically not in trouble, but I was strongly encouraged not to go buying any more heritage items from unverified sellers. When I got home, I checked my bank account. The site had refunded me the $600. That should have been reassuring, but honestly, it felt like hush money. So now I have no rug, a permanently heightened fight-or-flight response, and a mild reputation among East Asian art historians as the guy who accidentally bought a national treasure while decorating his Airbnb. I also bought a very plain, machine-made rug from Target. It ties the room together just fine. TIFU by going to my girlfriend's family reunion without realizing who her cousin was, so this happened a couple of months ago, but I've only just started to fully process how bad it was. My girlfriend, let's call her Emma, and I have been dating for about a year. We're both 27, things were going really well, and this past summer she invited me to her family reunion at her grandparents' lake house. I'd met her parents and younger brother before, but this was going to be the first time meeting the extended family. I was nervous, of course, but she reassured me they were all super chill, especially her cousins, who she was closest with. It's a weekend-long thing, bonfires, boats, barbecues, beer. Sounded perfect. I clear my schedule and we drive 4 hours out into the woods to this beautiful lakeside property that looks like it came straight out of a Pinterest board. I meet her grandparents, her aunt and uncle, her little cousins running around screaming in floaties, and about a dozen 20-something cousins and their significant others. Everyone is surprisingly friendly and welcoming. Then I see her, let's call her Sierra. Sierra is standing by the dock, talking to a few people, drink in hand, sundress swaying in the breeze, and for a second I freeze because I know her face. Not from Instagram. Not from meeting her at a party. No. I know her because we matched on Tinder almost a year and a half ago, right before I met Emma. And it was not just a match. Sierra and I had a very brief, chaotic history. We matched. We chatted. We met for drinks that same night. One thing led to another, and we ended up back at her place. Great night. No regrets. The next morning, we had coffee, laughed, and agreed it was a fun one-time thing. Except, the next weekend, she invited me over again. Then again. Then we started texting daily. I started thinking, okay, maybe this could be something, but then she ghosted me. No warning. No explanation. Full vanish. After a couple of weeks of no contact, I moved on. No hard feelings, really. I figured it was just one of those weird modern dating flameouts. Then, 3 months later, I met Emma. Completely different vibe. Real connection. Everything felt easy with her. Fast forward to the reunion. I'm standing there, holding a solo cup, staring at Sierra like I've seen a ghost. She hasn't seen me yet. I whisper to Emma, hey, who's that by the dock? Oh. That's Sierra, my cousin. You'll love her. She's wild. Wild. Yeah. You could say that. I panic. My brain is screaming. Abort mission. Retreat. Fake an allergic reaction to pine, but it's too late. Sierra turns. Our eyes meet. And in that half-second, her expression morphs from casual to wide-eyed recognition. She knows exactly who I am. Her mouth opens just a little like she's about to say something, then she composes herself and smiles that high stranger smile. Emma drags me over to introduce us. Sierra, this is my boyfriend I've been telling you about. And Sierra, this goddamn champion of social warfare, keeps her cool and goes, oh wow, so nice to finally meet you. I nearly choke on my drink. The next few hours are a blur. I try to stay glued to Emma, but at some point Sierra and I end up in the kitchen alone while grabbing more ice. She leans in and whispers, small world, huh? I just nod like an idiot. Yeah, super small. Then she hits me with, don't worry. I'm not going to say anything. I thank her. I tell her I had no idea they were related. She smirks and says, I figured. Cool. We're good. I think maybe I can survive this weekend. I was wrong. Later that night, everyone's drinking around the fire pit. People are sharing stories about most embarrassing college moments and worst dates ever. The vibe is chaotic but fun. Someone asks Sierra to tell the story of her craziest Tinder date. I immediately feel my soul leave my body. Sierra goes, oh God. Okay. So, a while ago I matched with this guy. Super hot. Seemed normal. We meet for drinks, we vibe. He comes over, we hook up. All good, right? The whole group is laughing and egging her on. Emma is giggling next to me, totally oblivious. I'm trying to look normal while dying inside. Sierra continues, so we keep seeing each other for a bit. But then he gets kind of weird. Like, one day he tells me he's getting serious vibes and starts asking if I see a future together. I panicked and ghosted. Everyone is losing it laughing. Emma's like, oh my god, that's awful. And Sierra just shrugs and says, I wasn't ready for all that. No hard feelings, right? And she looks right at me, the laughter keeps going, but now I'm sweating bullets. I can't tell if anyone picked up on it. Probably not. I laugh along and pray this is the end of it. The next day, we're out on the lake. I'm trying to enjoy myself, but I keep getting these subtle glances from Sierra. Not mean. Not threatening. Just amused. Like she knows she's got a loaded gun and I don't know if the safety is on. It all explodes during dinner. Emma's grandfather, sweet old guy, does this thing where he goes around the table and asks everyone how they met their significant other. It's a tradition. Very cute. When it gets to me, I start telling the story of how Emma and I met at a bookstore during a trivia night. Everyone's awing. Then Sierra, from across the table, goes, wait, was that before or after your whole Tinder phase? Silence. Everyone turns to look at me. Emma tilts her head. I scramble. Before? Sierra raises an eyebrow. Really? Huh. I guess time flies. Emma's mom goes, oh Sierra, leave him alone, and laughs, but Emma is staring at me like a puzzle she suddenly doesn't quite understand. That night, in bed, she asks, hey, did you and Sierra ever, know each other before this weekend? I panic again and blurt out, we matched on Tinder, forever ago. One date. Nothing happened. Technically not a lie, right? She goes quiet. Then says, okay, and rolls over. But the next morning she's cold. You took the last slice of pizza and I will never forgive you cold. We drive back in silence. A few days later, she asks again. I confess everything, the real story, and beg her to believe I had no idea Sierra was her cousin. Emma believes me, kind of. We're still together, but she definitely keeps her distance from Sierra now, and the story still comes up whenever we argue about anything, like it's Exhibit A in my bad judgment file. Anyway. That's how I accidentally slept with my girlfriend's cousin and then got roasted for it in front of her entire family. Thanks for coming to my emotional TED Talk. TIFU by being too good at pretending to be dead. So this happened about 2 weeks ago, but I'm just now recovering enough mentally to tell it. I, 29M, live in a medium-sized apartment complex with my girlfriend, who we'll call Jess, 28F. Our building is relatively new, and we're friends with a good number of our neighbors. We all get along well enough that someone had the idea of starting a little improv group that meets every Thursday evening in the community room. Now, I have a background in theater. Nothing professional, just high school and a couple community plays, but I always liked acting. So when this little improv group started, I was all in. Every Thursday night was filled with charades, made-up skits, and the occasional role-play game. The vibe was very whose line is it anyway, meets people with too much free time. Last Thursday, someone suggested we do a mock murder mystery night. It sounded fun, like a classic someone dies, we all have to figure out who did it kind of thing. I was excited. Jess, who is generally more introverted, said she'd join in this time too. We drew roles randomly. Someone was the detective, others were suspects, and one person had to be the victim. I, of course, drew the short straw and was the victim. I had one job, die dramatically and stay dead while everyone played out the mystery. That's it. That's all I had to do. But I'm an overachiever. I decided to go full Daniel Day-Lewis on this. If I was going to die, I was going to make it believable. I practiced holding my breath for extended periods. I googled how to make your skin look pale fast and even laid on the cold tile in the bathroom for 10 minutes before we started to make myself cold to the touch. My plan was simple: collapse in the middle of the room dramatically during the intro, then lie there as convincingly as possible for however long the game went. We get into the community room. Everyone's in character. Jess is playing some suspicious heiress with a fake British accent. I take my place and, at the perfect moment, clutch my chest and collapse mid-sentence. I land perfectly, one arm sprawled out, eyes rolled back slightly. A few people gasp. The detective announces that I've been murdered. Game on. 20 minutes pass. People are doing their bits. Jess is arguing with the groundskeeper, our neighbor Tom, accusing him of poisoning the tea. I'm lying there, motionless, with shallow breathing and my eyes half closed. At one point, I let a little drool run out the corner of my mouth for realism. I am killing it. But then, things go sideways. Tom, who is playing the groundskeeper, crouches next to me to inspect the body. He feels my wrist for a pulse. I'm careful not to move or react. He frowns. Then he puts his fingers to my neck. I slow my breathing even more. He looks up at the others. I don't feel a pulse. Someone chuckles. Nice, Tom. No, seriously, he says. I think something's wrong. There's a pause. The room gets weirdly quiet. I hear Jess say, "Wait, what?" Now I'm in a bind. I can't just sit up and say gotcha, without looking like a complete psychopath. But if I don't move, they might actually think I'm dead. I decide to give them 30 more seconds. They'll figure it out. Right? They did not. Tom starts shaking me gently. Jess kneels down and slaps my cheek. Babe? Babe? Her voice cracks a little. Someone else has pulled out their phone. I hear them saying he's not breathing. I'm calling 911. At this point I realize I have massively miscalculated. I shoot up, gasping, "Wait. I'm okay. I'm okay." The room goes completely silent. Jess jumps back and lets out this half scream. Tom drops his phone. One of the neighbors shrieks and trips over a chair. I try to explain, I was just acting. I was just really into it. I thought it was obvious. It was not obvious. Apparently, I had stayed so still, so cold, and so convincingly lifeless that everyone genuinely thought I had died. Jess was on the verge of tears. Tom looked like he was about to throw up. The person on the phone had already spoken to a 911 operator, who was still on the line. Long story short, I had to get on the phone and explain to the operator that I had faked my death as part of a community improv game, and no, I was not actually in cardiac arrest. The operator was silent for a solid 5 seconds before saying, "Please do not do that again," and hung up. The paramedics still showed up. Protocol or something. They had to check me out just to be sure. Nothing says I screwed up quite like getting your vitals taken while your girlfriend paces angrily nearby muttering "What is wrong with you?" under her breath. The improv group has unofficially been disbanded. Jess hasn't spoken much about it since, except to say, "You ever do anything that stupid again, I'm donating your body to science while you're still using it." Honestly, fair. Anyway, that's how I almost got put in a body bag for being too committed to the bit. TIFU by faking an injury to skip a wedding and accidentally becoming a local hero. This happened about a month ago, and I'm still getting texts from people in my hometown like I'm a damn legend. But it all started with me being lazy and trying to get out of going to a wedding I didn't want to attend. I don't think I've ever experienced such a fast-moving avalanche of chaos in my life. So here's some context. I'm a 29-year-old dude with a decent tech job, working remotely. My cousin, let's call him Kyle, was getting married in our hometown, a smallish city about 3 hours away from where I live now. I love my family, but Kyle is the type of guy who peaked in high school, drinks Monster Energy like water, and unironically refers to women as females. We're not close. His fiancée, now wife, is a bridezilla who once screamed at a waitress for putting lemon in her water. I really didn't want to go. But it was a big family event, and my mom was guilt-tripping me hard. I had already used the I have work excuse too many times, so I panicked and came up with something new. I told my family that I had recently sprained my ankle helping a neighbor move a couch. Even limped during a video call with my mom. She was full of concern. I figured if I kept it up, I'd be off the hook. Now, you'd think I'd just chill that weekend and enjoy my free time, right? But no. My dumbass decides I'm gonna treat myself to a movie at this small, indie theater across town. It's a single-screen place that plays old films, and they were doing a Blade Runner double feature. I couldn't resist. I Uber there to keep the lie consistent. I even brought an old ankle wrap and wore it loosely under my pants just in case I ran into someone I knew. I didn't think that was even remotely possible. So I'm posted up at the theater, popcorn in hand, enjoying the hell out of Blade Runner when, about halfway through the first movie, the screen goes black. Lights on. A guy in a theater polo comes out and tells us all to calmly evacuate. No panic, just a weird, chill tone that made it seem like a drill. Outside, people are grumbling, checking their watches. Someone says they smelled smoke in the bathroom. I figure okay, whatever, probably just a false alarm. We're all standing on the sidewalk, and I'm leaning against a bench, trying to remember if I paused my sourdough starter back home. I didn't, it exploded later, but that's another story. And then we hear shouting. From around the corner comes this teenage kid, maybe 17, screaming, "My brother's stuck in the bathroom." The theater worker is already calling 911, but the kid is hysterical, saying his brother went in before the alarm and hasn't come out. People start crowding around. I should have stayed out of it. Should have let the firefighters handle it. But for some reason, maybe because I'm a dumbass with something to prove, I ask the kid which bathroom. He points. The fire alarm is still going, but no actual fire truck has arrived yet. Everyone else is just watching, hesitating. I limp my fake injured ass around to the side entrance, and to my surprise, the door is wide open. No flames, just a haze of smoke and that acrid burnt electrical smell. I cover my mouth with my shirt and yell, "Anyone in here?" Faint coughing, then a voice says help, from inside the men's room. I go in. Kid's maybe 11, had apparently locked himself in the stall because the handle broke. The smoke is coming from an electrical box nearby that's sparking, nothing huge yet, but real enough to scare him into thinking he was going to die. I kick the door open, adrenaline is wild, grab the kid, and hobble limp drag us both outside like it's a scene from a disaster movie. Everyone cheers. I'm coughing like crazy, eyes watering. An EMT checks us both out. Kid's fine, just scared. His brother's crying, hugging him, thanking me over and over. Someone took a video. That video made it to Facebook. And then the local news. Next day, I wake up to about 30 texts. My aunt sent me a clip from the news. Local man heroically rescues child from fire at historic West Elm Theater. My name's in the lower third. They cropped the video so I look super dramatic, carrying this kid with a look of grim determination and a fake ankle injury I was totally milking for sympathy. But here's the kicker, my mom saw it. She calls me in tears, saying she had no idea I was in that much pain and still went out to help the community. She's telling the whole extended family how proud she is. My uncle texts me, calling me Captain Courage. Kyle, the cousin whose wedding I skipped, posts the video and captions it, "My cousin's a hero, like we're best buds." Even the bride comments with, "Wow, maybe we should have invited him to speak at the wedding." I couldn't say a damn word. If I admitted I lied, I'd go from hero to heel faster than you can say sprained ankle. So I just rolled with it. And that would have been the end of it, if the mayor didn't invite me to a community recognition event the following weekend. That's how I ended up sitting in a folding chair at a park, still faking the limp, receiving a certificate of heroism from the city, next to a woman who rescued a dog from a frozen lake and a guy who ran a literacy program for inmates. I felt like the world's biggest fraud. My mom cried during the speech. I had to give a short talk and thanked the spirit of community while internally screaming. To this day, my family thinks I'm a limping legend. I've had to start doing light ankle exercises in front of my webcam during family Zooms. My coworker asked if I wanted to join the company's disaster response team. The kids' family sent me a fruit basket. Meanwhile, I still haven't seen the end of Blade Runner. This happened about a week ago, and I'm still internally combusting every time I think about it. I work in digital marketing at a relatively chill mid-sized company. Our team is mostly remote, and communication is done through Slack and email. I'm 27, female, and I like to consider myself professional with a decent sense of humor. The key word here is like. For context, I have two main group chats on my phone that I juggle between work messages. One is for actual coworkers, Slack, and the other is a chaotic, unhinged friend group chat called Pasta Sluts. You can already see where this is going. Pasta Sluts is a group of 5 friends from college. We've known each other for almost a decade and have a running joke about how seductive pasta can be, stemming from a drunken night sophomore year where one of us literally tried to seduce a guy by eating spaghetti like it was a sensual ASMR video. Ever since, we randomly send each other videos of ourselves dramatically and seductively eating pasta, accompanied by romantic music or low-budget candlelight. It's stupid. It's hilarious. It's our thing. So, last Saturday night, after a few glasses of wine and a particularly good bowl of homemade carbonara, I decided to make my magnum opus. I dimmed the lights, lit a candle, set up my phone, and queued up some Marvin Gaye. I got out my best sultry voice. I wore a robe. A literal robe. I twirled the pasta slowly on my fork, made deliberate eye contact with the camera, moaned, yes, actually moaned, after a bite, and ended the video by whispering, "Bet you wish you were this noodle right now." In my slightly buzzed state, I was really proud of it. I reviewed it twice. Laughed at myself. Then went to send it to Pasta Sluts. What I didn't realize was that I had just finished responding to a work message from my boss, Clara, right before that. So when I hit the share button and tapped the most recent conversation, my beautiful, seductive ode to carbonara was delivered directly to the woman who controls my salary. At first, I didn't notice. I just went about my night, smug in my pasta sex goddess glory. About 30 minutes later, I saw a new Slack message from Clara that said, "Hey, I'm not sure if that last video was meant for me." Cue the full body shutdown. You know that feeling when your organs all try to evacuate your body at once? Yeah. That. I opened Slack. The video was there. Staring me in the face like an HR lawsuit. I couldn't unsend it. I couldn't delete it. I couldn't even edit the message because Slack on mobile is garbage when it comes to media. I panicked. I genuinely considered quitting on the spot. Like, I was actually Googling how to fake your own death convincingly. After 5 minutes of just staring into the abyss of my own stupidity, I typed, "Oh my god, I'm so sorry, that was 1000% not meant for you." I have a very weird inside joke group with my friends about pasta, and that was meant for them. Please disregard. Forever. I want to die. She didn't reply for what felt like hours, actually about 10 minutes. Then she responded with, "LOL, that might be the strangest wrong message I've ever received, but honestly, 10/10 fork twirl. Let's just pretend it never happened. I'll never look at carbonara the same again, okay?" So. She wasn't mad. She wasn't calling HR. She complimented the fork twirl, which, credit where credit is due, was pretty elegant. But even with her gracious response, I felt a part of my soul retreat into a dark corner to live in permanent exile. Monday rolls around, and I jump into our weekly Zoom meeting trying to act normal, like I hadn't sent softcore pasta erotica to my boss. Everything's fine for about 10 minutes. Then Clara says, while going through team updates, and if anyone else wants to submit pasta appreciation videos, the bar has been set pretty high. The whole team laughs. People are confused. I laugh like it's the first time I've ever heard a joke. I think one person, Sam from UX, figured out what happened based on the way he immediately turned off his camera because he was wheezing so hard. Since then, pasta has become a code word on the team. People are dropping it in Slack casually. Great job on the client deck, seriously pasta level effort. Let's noodle on this idea later. I'm dying inside, but at least it's not malicious. Just pure, undiluted chaos. I've gone from being the quiet one who makes good reports to pasta girl, which is something. To add insult to injury, I told my friends what happened. Instead of comforting me, they immediately changed our group chat name to HR Violation. One of them even made a meme of me holding a fork with the caption, "When you're serving looks and linguine." So now I live in pasta infamy. I've triple-checked my recipient list before sending anything. I no longer eat pasta near my phone. And I'm trying to convince myself that this will all blow over eventually. It probably won't. But at least I didn't get fired. TIFU by accidentally creating a personalized playlist that was so inappropriate, it ruined a date, a friendship, and my reputation at work. I've always been the type to overthink things, especially when it comes to social situations. It's like my brain just won't shut off, and I get so caught up in making sure everything goes right that I sometimes sabotage myself. This particular incident started a few weeks ago, and it all began with a simple decision to be thoughtful. It all started when I invited a girl, Sarah, from work on a date. We had been getting along well for a while, chatting during lunch breaks, texting a bit here and there, and just generally enjoying each other's company. I could tell there was some mutual interest, but I didn't want to rush things. I figured a nice, casual dinner date would be the perfect way to see if there was anything more between us. Now, being the overthinker that I am, I immediately started worrying about the little details. I mean, what if the music wasn't right? What if it was too loud or too quiet? What if we didn't have enough to talk about? So, I decided to take matters into my own hands and curate a playlist. Not just any playlist, though. This was going to be a carefully selected mix of songs that would set the perfect mood and make me seem like the kind of guy who knew exactly what he was doing. I spent hours on Spotify, trying to find the right songs that would create just the right vibe. A mix of indie, soft rock, a little bit of 80s, some mellow pop, you know, the kind of playlist that says, I'm cool, but not trying too hard. I spent so long on it that I ended up curating about 4 hours of music, thinking I'd just let it shuffle for the evening. But then, in one of my rare moments of self-confidence, I thought, why not personalize the playlist even more? So, I decided to add some of my favorite songs, the ones that really spoke to me. These were the deep cuts, the tracks that had sentimental value, the ones I felt really defined me. I was convinced that this would make me come across as thoughtful, someone who had an emotional side. In hindsight, I realized this was the first mistake. You see, some of these songs weren't exactly the type of thing you'd want to listen to on a first date. In fact, they weren't really the kind of songs you'd want anyone to hear unless you were really close with them. Some were breakup anthems, others were depressing ballads, and then there were a few tracks that were, well, let's just say, a bit too raw for a casual evening out. But I was so focused on making this playlist reflect my authentic self that I didn't really think about how these songs might make someone feel. Fast forward to the night of the date. We met up at a local Italian restaurant, and things started off great. The food was delicious, we had some good conversation, and I was feeling pretty confident. After dinner, we decided to go for a walk around the park, and I figured now was the perfect time to play the playlist I had so carefully crafted. I pulled out my phone and opened up the playlist. As I did, Sarah smiled and asked, "What kind of music do you like?" "I'm curious." I took a deep breath, trying to keep my cool. "Oh, I made a playlist for tonight," I said. "I think you'll really like it." I hit play, and we walked along the path, the music filling the air. For the first few songs, it was fine, a couple of mellow indie tracks, some light acoustic tunes, nothing too crazy. But then, just as we were getting comfortable, the playlist took a sharp turn into territory I wasn't prepared for. The first mistake came in the form of a song called "Tears in Heaven" by Eric Clapton. It's a beautiful song, sure, but it's also about grief and loss. Not exactly the vibe you want to set for a date. Sarah's face immediately shifted from relaxed to confused. This is kind of a heavy song," she said, glancing at me. I quickly explained, "Yeah, I really like it. It's one of those songs that gets to me." She nodded, but I could tell she was a little thrown off. I tried to laugh it off, hoping the next song would be better. But it wasn't. The next track was a deep cut from Radiohead called "How to Disappear Completely." For those of you who know the song, it's haunting and emotionally intense, the kind of song that makes you feel like you're slowly fading away. I saw Sarah glance at me again, clearly unsettled. "Okay," she said, her tone shifting from curiosity to concern. "This is interesting. Is this kind of your vibe, like, all the time?" I could feel my face turning red. Well, I mean, yeah, I just like songs that, have depth." But by now, she was looking at me like I'd just revealed I was a secret member of a goth band. And to make matters worse, the playlist wasn't slowing down. Next up was a song called "The Night We Met" by Lord Huron. While this one wasn't quite as intense, it still had a certain melancholy to it, a yearning for lost love. But I figured it was a nice, romantic touch, until the chorus hit. And I had all of my chances and I'll never get them back. Sarah's expression was now a mixture of confusion and concern, and I could tell she was trying her best to understand my taste in music. But at this point, I could see it was getting a little too much for her. "Are you, going through something?" she asked gently. I froze. That's when I realized what I had done. I had basically created a playlist that was a deep dive into all of my emotional baggage, my breakup songs, my nostalgic regrets, and my hidden insecurities, and I had forced them onto her in one of the most awkward ways possible. I immediately tried to salvage the moment. No. I'm fine. I mean, yeah, I've had some tough times, but this isn't, all the time. I promise." But it was too late. The damage was done. The rest of the walk was painfully quiet, and when we finally parted ways, Sarah gave me a polite smile, but I could tell she wasn't interested in seeing me again. To make matters worse, the next day at work, I was bombarded with questions from my coworkers. Apparently, Sarah had told a few people about the awkward date, and, of course, they all wanted to know what kind of emo playlist I'd subjected her to. Word spread quickly, and before long, I was known as that guy with the weird breakup songs. I tried to laugh it off, but every time I walked into the office, I could feel the stares and the whispers. It was like I had gone from being the guy everyone thought was a cool, laid-back coworker to the guy with a mysterious and possibly concerning emotional state. The worst part is that I never even got a chance to apologize to Sarah. She avoided me at work, and when I tried to reach out, I just got the polite but distant replies. I completely ruined any chance of a relationship with her, and now I have to live with the awkwardness every day at the office. So, yeah, that was my epic screw-up. I overthought everything and ended up coming across as someone who was emotionally unstable and way too intense for a first date. If there's one lesson I've learned, it's this: if you're ever considering making a personalized playlist for someone, maybe think twice about how much of your own emotional baggage you want to share. Thank you for watching until the end. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel so you won't miss new videos. Also, leave a comment, I'd love to hear your thoughts. Your support and engagement mean a lot to me. See you in the next video.